you're planning on doing, but what would really happen if you were late getting back to your cruise ship after an excursion? A lot of people wonder about this because at the end of the day, it's kind of a morbid thought in a sense that you always want to think worst case scenario so you can be prepared for what you could possibly have to deal with. And when you go on a cruise and you visit some of these amazing ports of call, whether they're in the Caribbean, Europe, Alaska, Australia, you're going to want to maximize your time that you're spending in port. But you definitely don't want to miss the ship coming back because, kind of like a train or a bus, if you're not there when they leave, then you get left behind for reals. Since cruises usually visit more than one destination, sailings are on a pretty tight schedule to ensure that their timeline is adhered to. Essentially, this means that everybody must be on the ship at a certain time before leaving for the next stop on the voyage. And if you cruise before, then you know how entertaining it is to watch some of the people that we call pier runners be late in order to make it back to the ship at the last minute. It's only fun because it's not you, of course. There always seems to be at least one person who frantically tries to make it back to the ship on time. In fact, there are plenty of videos here on YouTube of people running frantically back to the ship, and we might get a laugh out of it right now, but of course you don't want to be that person, right? To avoid this from happening, cruise ships always inform passengers when the all aboard time is to be back on board. It's a really good idea to get back to the ship even earlier than the all aboard time just to be safe. When I am on shore, I always plan to be back about 2 hours before the all aboard time. That way, if there's a traffic delay or some other unforeseen circumstance, you've got some padding over there. If you or your travel party are running late in port, though, you might be wondering how long the cruise ship would wait for you to get back. Captain Carl Gracchub is the captain of Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas and has worked for Royal Caribbean for more than 25 years. When one of our staff members was on board Voyager of the Seas, we asked him what happens if somebody is indeed late getting back to the ship. As Captain Gracchub explained, if you're on an excursion with Royal Caribbean, the ship will wait for the entire group to come back before leaving. This is one of the many benefits of booking an excursion with Royal Caribbean rather than booking a tour with an independent company. You also know the excursion is reputable when you book it directly through the cruise line. Captain Gracchub said that he would wait for passengers to return from a Royal Caribbean excursion unless it's, quote, an unreasonable amount of time. In the case of an extremely lengthy delay, Captain Gracchub stated that the ship might not always wait for passengers. In this unlikely and extenuating circumstance, Royal Caribbean would provide transportation to the next port of call or back to the departure port if it's towards the end of the trip for everybody on the excursion. If you're not on a Royal Caribbean excursion and are late getting back to the ship, Captain Gracchub said, quote, normally we do not wait, end quote. As such, you should always plan to be back by all aboard time to prevent this from happening. Now, if the cruise ship knows you're missing, they will try to contact you. It was interesting to note that the captain said in the event that you don't board the ship before the all aboard time, the cruise ship will know that you're missing because, of course, you didn't clock back in with your SeaPass card. At this time, the ship will use the emergency contact information that you provided while checking in for your cruise. When providing an emergency contact, you must enter the information of somebody who is not on the cruise with you. Captain Gracchub said if someone is missing, we call that emergency number. Generally, this goes to somebody at home. If you contact the ship using your own cell phone or another phone you found in port, Captain Gracchub said they will use this number to contact you. Quote, if we get a hold of you and you say, I'm in the taxi, I'm sorry, but there was traffic, I'm 10 minutes away, then we will wait, end quote. With this in mind, you should not rely on the cruise ship to wait an extra 10 minutes for you. Don't push your luck. Now, if the cruise ship can't get a hold of you, it is indeed going to leave you behind. Because if they can't contact you, can't figure out where you are, then they're just going to leave. This is because they don't know how long it's going to be until you get back. Quote, you're stuck waiting 15 minutes, and then it becomes half an hour. Before you know it, an hour goes by and nobody shows up. So we don't wait, is what Captain Gracchub said, end quote. Therefore, if you find yourself running behind, it's best to contact Royal Caribbean to let the cruise ship know of your situation. In case you're wondering, you want to contact the emergency travel team, which is a 24/7 phone number you can call, 1-800-256-6649, and then select option 2 for the emergency team. So now let's assume you missed the ship. It's over, they're not waiting for you. Because if you come back to the pier and see your cruise ship has departed without you, there will be a port agent on the pier that can help you. You will not be left high and dry, although you won't be in an ideal situation. If you need to get in contact with the port agent, there is always contact information in every cruise compass on the bottom of the page. It's usually found under the 24-hour services and venue section. You can also find the port agent info in the cruise line's app. It's best to always have this number handy when traveling ashore, just in case of an emergency. Heck, you can take a photo of it, of the cruise compass, or a screenshot from the Royal Caribbean app before you head ashore, just to make sure of it. The port agent will provide you with whatever you need, especially since you will most likely not have more than just your swimsuit and bag with random odds and ends. You'll be expected to purchase an airline ticket or other form of transportation on your own dime, and this can be very expensive. If you don't have a passport or other proper verification with you, you're going to need now to go to the U.S. Embassy for assistance. And for this reason, some cruisers choose to bring their passports ashore so they're never left without it. I'll be honest with you, whenever I go ashore, except for, of course, Perfect Day, Coco Key, or Labadee, I always bring my passport with me. Matt, what if you leave your passport behind, or what if it gets lost or stolen or whatever? What if my kids get lost or stolen or left behind? I mean, you've got valuables you're going to travel with, take proper precautions, but at the end of the day, be prepared, and that's why I always bring my passport with me. On the back of every SeaPass card is an emergency phone number to call Royal Caribbean. We talked about the emergency travel team earlier, but I would definitely contact the phone number on the back of the SeaPass card to get the ball rolling and see what options you have. Now, you also might be wondering, are there any penalties given if someone's late back to the ship? And Captain Grockhop said, no, not really. Again, ships don't wait for late passengers, quote, unless we can get a hold of them and they tell us where they are. If it's reasonable, then we'll wait. But no, there are no repercussions other than if you miss the ship, because then it's a big expense. So luckily, this worst case scenario isn't made worse with the repercussions for Royal Caribbean. You'll be blacklisted for future cruises, but it's a costly mistake because, again, you're on your own now. So you got to get your own airfare back, and no matter where you're flying to or from, last minute flights, because more than likely you're going to fly back like that day or the next day, ain't going to be cheap. So what should you do to make sure you're never late getting back to your cruise ship? I've got 4 easy tips. Number 1, give yourself plenty of time to get back to the ship. If the all-aboard time is 5:30 p.m., plan to be back on the ship by 4:30 p.m. or even earlier than that. Number 2, don't venture too far from the port. If there's traffic or an accident that closes the road, you may not make it back to the ship on time. Try to stay close to the port so you can make it back quickly. Of course, padding extra time there helps with that issue as well. And number 3, and this is really important, make sure you're on ship time. Some cruises go through multiple time zone changes throughout one voyage. So knowing what time the ship is on is extremely important. Sometimes the local time is different than the ship time. Equally importantly is check your phone settings. A lot of people use their phone as their watch, and I do this all the time. But keep in mind that in a lot of cases, if you don't change the setting, it may detect the local time and change it automatically. So turn that feature off, number 1. Number 2, when you walk off the ship or before you get off the ship, verify that your ship time is the same as what you're seeing in your phone or watch or whatever you're using. So that way there's no misunderstandings by being an hour ahead or behind. And lastly, always have port info, identification, and money. Before you get off the cruise ship, make sure you take a picture of the port agent's information, and also never leave the ship without a form of identification. You should also have money, especially a credit card, in case you need to purchase an expensive ticket home or an emergency passport. So there you have it, what to expect, what happens if you actually do miss the ship during a shore excursion. Unlikely to it ever occur. It's very, very rare, but just like you, I was also wondering the same thing because you want to be realistic about what could likely happen. I want to hear in the comments below, do you have any close brushes with missing a ship, and what are your top tips for ensuring that you're never a pier runner on your cruise? Let me know in the comments below. While you're below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.